And all right. Cool. So we are live. How y'all doing?
We're doing great. Emily, how are you doing?
We are doing great. I'm doing great.
Yeah, same. I'm glad.
While we're waiting for people to join, and I see people are kind of coming in. We'll start in a couple of minutes. I want to ask about a feature for Zoom and how much you would pay for it. And here's the idea for the feature. You can join a meeting, but nobody knows you're there. And maybe you can join a meeting, but maybe it's just ones you're invited to. And I'm just wondering how much you would pay for that.
It's a BCC, right?
Yes.
In a meeting.
Zoom BCC. Excellent.
Yeah. No, right. I like it. I like it because I kind of want to be a fly on the wall in every conversation, so it kind of gives me that opportunity.
Yes.
I don't know, man. That makes my anxiety spike. That's what my AI note taker is for. Like, I send it in for me.
And would you be learning too much, Nate? Is that?
I think that is the fear. Also, I would never know if I was in the meeting. Is there like somebody else on the meeting? Like I think I would be perhaps a bit more guarded in my statements.
So you're not as nosy as Justin and I. Is what you're saying, right?
I don't know if it's a question about nosy or if it's that I worry
just more
about
private. Yeah.
I worry about my filter.
Yeah.
100%. Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should get started. It's 10:02. Yeah. Time. We should get going.
Sounds great. Cool. Well, hey, welcome everybody. We're delighted you've joined us for today's webinar, talking through differentiating your brand when AI content is cheap and easy. We are delighted to have Emily Mermel with us. She is Director of Brand and Growth at Tailscale and a bona fide expert on this topic and has a lot of really smart ideas that we here at Ércule think are pretty amazing. So we're delighted to have her with us. And just want to let everybody know we are recording this. So once the webinar is concluded, we will be sending a recording out. It'll be shareable, and also you'll be able to rewatch it. And also we will be having a Q&A at the end of this. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, or I think there's also a Q&A section you could drop it in. But yeah, we would love to have your questions. And Justin and Justin is also here with us. Sorry, I got excited about Emily. Justin is also the founder of Ércule. I think he needs no introduction, but he does need introduction.
Real quick, and then Emily, yeah. I'll hand it to you after I do that to introduce yourself and start us off if that works for you.
Cool.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm Justin. So happy people to join us. Really honored and grateful that Emily's doing this with us. Emily, you and I have worked together on various things and known each other for a few years now. And Emily's just great and a great leader and has a lot of great ideas on brand and how to deal with an AI. I'm Justin. I'm one of the founders of Ércule. Ércule is an organic growth agency. We work on content systems, intersection of SEO, GEO, analytics, content production, all that stuff. That is the last you will hear about what Ércule is during this, except maybe a little bit at the end. But that's us. And Emily, do you want to introduce yourself and take it away? This will be mostly just for people watching. Emily's gonna talk, and I'm gonna try to be clever occasionally. That's my role. But
I love it. Yeah, I will. Let's talk about a couple things. First thing I want to talk about is what's really on the agenda. So we're going to talk about 3 things today. We're going to talk about the importance of your brand, where AI misses the mark, and then how we bring brand and AI together. My hope is that you learn something really interesting that you can take away and do maybe today, maybe in the next hour, depending on how much of an overachiever you are. But first I will jump in and tell you a little bit about myself. So I've worked in web for over a decade, back when keyword stuffing was all the rage and mobile design was a nice to have. Right now I'm at Tailscale. I manage a brand and growth team, but most of my career these days is made up of coming into a startup and building up a brand and growth program from scratch. A lot of what that looks like is really focusing on user experience, really focusing on A/B testing, and then you guessed it, really focusing on content that not only ranks but also performs really well from a CRO perspective. So that means that I've been dabbling in AI since it came out and have completely integrated it into my day to day. I think I probably use it like once every hour at least. And it's massive, right? It changes everything. It changes your workflow, it changes your velocity, it changes your outcomes. But I want to make it clear that it doesn't change. Like, I don't think it's going to change everything from the space of, I don't think it should replace us humans. I'm very pro human. So AI is really awesome, right? It helps us in so many different ways, but it doesn't have heart, and heart is really important. AI is mostly focusing on facts and figures, and it's not focusing on narrative. And narrative is becoming more and more important as we go, right? Because everything is starting to sound the same, which is why we're here talking about this today. So that's where your brand and your people come together. So the goal today is to not create something that's going to replace all the people on your team. I think all of us would like to stay employed, myself included. The goal here is to create a tool that helps empower you and everyone on your team.
And I think, Emily, your belief and our belief is that it truly can get you to better outcomes. So if anybody is here for like an, AEO stuffing webinar, all that stuff, like growth hacking, you're in the wrong place. I mean, you should stay.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Sorry. No, right. Sorry. Yeah.
Get out of here. Whatever. But I think this is something that you and I really share, which is what we want you to come away from this with is what is the appropriate role for AI and how does it help you get to better outcomes? And I'm just recapitulating some of what you said, Emily.
Yeah. And I'll add to that too, that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be really talking about how do we build a tool. We're not just going to be talking about the importance of brand. Brand is incredibly important. We're going to talk about how to take that brand and build a tool that really helps empower you and your team. So let's start talking a little bit about brand. What is a brand? This is a massive question. If you typed it into any, AI tool, Google, any of it, it's going to give you a million different answers. So we're going to boil it down as much as we can. And that is how your company is perceived, shaping the narrative, messaging, and emotional connection that makes people really care, right? It's also, as of right now, the only thing that really sets your company apart with AI content. I think most people think of brand as these things, but this isn't your brand. These are the expressions of your brand. These are the surfaces that your brand lives on top of. And it makes your brand, they all can make your brand unique, but what really matters is the strategy behind it, right? So we want to make sure that we're focusing in on tone of voice, value prop, emotional posture is really important, messaging pillars. But back in like maybe even 2 or 3 years ago, a lot of these things kind of happened by accident. People would kind of fall into having a brand strategy. They weren't putting together these very serious documents that outline what they really want their users or their customers to feel. And now we really have to go out of the silo and into really centering everything around brand and brand strategy.
To that, at the end of this webinar, we're going to have one weird trick, right, Emily, for how to make your content differentiated, and everybody's going to think that it's not what you think it is, and it's not a weird trick. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
You're really selling it. No pressure. So basically, another way to look at this is back in the day, again, as in like 2 years ago, the strategy was we need more content on our website. We need it to be good. We need it to feel good for our users. So we need to hire a really good writer. And that writer is very helpful. They have emotional intelligence. They know how to speak to humans. They have internal knowledge. So what is your company focusing on? What are your goals? What product do you want to focus on? What new product updates are coming out? And they have a really good understanding of brand foundations because they've been onboarded, right? But compared to AI, they're also not as fast, right? They might not be as technical. You might hire someone because they're a very good writer and they aren't maybe a product expert. And so they have to ramp, right, to get there. And they're also prone to human error. So then everyone said, oh my God, AI is so awesome. Let's just have AI write everything, right? Let's have AI be our writer. And that there's some perks, right? There's really high content output. There's technical knowledge. They can easily scan your docs and pull a bunch of information in. And there's pretty high accuracy, aside from like, what is it called when they kind of like glitch out and are delusional?
Oh, hallucinations.
Yeah, that. But really what we've all kind of learned here is if you use AI as your writer, it sounds incredibly generic. It has no POV and has no brand foundations. So your content falls flat because everyone has access to the same tools. Everyone is using these tools. If you have access to ChatGPT, if you have access to Claude, if you have access to Gemini, and your competitors also have access to these tools, and they are likely asking these tools the same questions that you're asking. So if you don't have a solid brand, then you're going to get incredibly generic content. So your brand now becomes your competitive advantage, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is one of my favorite slides in the presentation, and it's something that hadn't really sunk in for me before we started talking about this, which is also, this is not a problem that is solved by new models. This is not a problem that is solved by signing up for a SaaS. This is not a problem that is solved by advancements. The new dynamic is everybody has this tool, and the question is who is going to use it the best. And if you don't do the things that we're talking about in this webinar, it doesn't matter how good your AI is. So Emily, again, this is just something you're just saying, but I wanted to put a little emphasis on it for everybody because I think this is a very deep point that this is like, your problem is not going to get solved with Fable.
Yes, right. Yeah, and it's not going to be solved by like, oh, well, I'm using the most recent model, so I should be fine. Like there is no should be fine at this point. Everything here is generic, which leads to really similar content riddled with AI-isms. Here are some of the most popular AI-isms. This makes it so easy to spot AI content in the wild, and it is not great for your business. I think all of us probably have published content with this in it because this is what everything was like this is everything that was being produced in the beginning of that like AI boom. But it is very flat, and it's exactly what we've talked about when we say AI slop, right? And then let's not forget RIP to the EM dash, which will never be able to be used again because AI has taken it hostage. So this is pretty bad for your business, right? It's actually really bad. So it doesn't just make your content unoriginal because that, you could have unoriginal content if you, let's say, didn't use a good agency like Aircule and had somebody just kind of like churning out the same content for their clients. But really, it impacts user trust, confidence, how people learn about your product. And I think all of us have learned this the hard way, right? Justin, I think you and I both have talked about how we've taken something back when we were experimenting with AI, we put it up and it did not do well. Everyone's done this. Everyone's been here.
And that's the other thing is it really does show up in the numbers. And it shows up in whether things are attached to pipeline. It shows up in all of those things. It even shows up in performance now because the other thing is while we're getting all these new capabilities with models, algorithms are getting better at detecting this stuff and there's more of it. So that differentiation delta, that like the returns that accrue to you from actually being differentiated as opposed to using technology as a way to differentiate yourself or attempt to is huge. And yeah, I mean, this is also a great slide because like, let's have this sink in that not only is it bad because the content's bad and you don't get the business outcomes you want and all that other stuff, it's also bad because it doesn't help you at all. It's generic. Hallucinations aren't even the worst problem with AI content. The worst problem is that it's empty.
Yep. And so, okay, we've made it doom and gloom, right? We're all feeling really scared because we use AI, we don't customize it, and all of these things are happening. So what do we do? Again, we don't replace your entire human team with AI bots. What we do is we enhance those AI bots to enable your team, your human team, to work smarter and faster. So let's talk about how we would do that. There are it really boils down to 3 different steps, right? So the first is you want to establish your brand. This is something that is going to take a lot of time because there's a high likelihood that your brand doesn't have these important brand documents. And the good news is, Justin will talk about it a little bit later, but there are a lot of different ways that you can figure out what you want these documents to look like and sound like. It's going to take some tweaking with you and AI and probably pulling in a lot of members of other teams, but this is an essential part of this process, right? If your brand is your competitive advantage, you need to spend a lot of time figuring out your brand documentation. The second is tailoring AI to your brand. So you could use Claude or ChatGPT to build out a bot that knows your brand and enables the humans behind it. That's what we're going to do later today. We're going to go through an example of how to do this in ChatGPT and then how to do this in Claude. And then the third is test, tweak, and repeat. You really want to take this and test it like crazy. We don't want to say, okay, well, we did this, so now we can trust it. Like that's not the goal here. What we want to do is we want this to be a living, breathing kind of tool that continuously gets updated based on what is and isn't working. So different ways you could do that is using paid ads, right? Paid ads is a really awesome way to see if specific content that you've used with this bot, produced with this bot, is helping or resonating with your audience. Same thing as A/B testing, right? You can use a tool like Optimizely and A/B test this stuff on your website. Paid ads, getting feedback from customers. There are a lot of different ways that you can do this kind of work, but the testing is really important. Not like you do not want to just go rogue and just send this out there, right? That's going to be the most important piece of this.
I love how also just at every step, Emily, as you talk through like, how is it changing things? What do we need to do? How do we operationalize it, which we're going to talk more about the next. There are so many rules for humans. There are perhaps more rules for humans than there were before.
Yes. Yeah, that's the interesting thing too. I've seen so much on LinkedIn about how like brand is back.
Yeah.
Because it now is the most important part of the work that you're going to do from an AI perspective. And the people who need to put together the brand documents are people because they understand what motivates people to buy. So let's see how this kind of all comes together, right? Let's talk about some results. So like I said, at Tailscale, we run a lot of tests. That's a big part of the work that we do. It's the best way for us to basically make sure that the content we're writing is working, that the designs that we put on the website are working. And when I started, we were using basic out-of-the-box ChatGPT to put some content on the site and trusting that it understood our business, right? We were doing exactly what I'm saying not to do. And we ended up with some pretty generic content. It's not bad, but it's pretty generic. You look at that and you're like, I don't know what that is, right? The problem was it understood our product, but it didn't understand our customer, right? So we came up with a hypothesis that replacing this generic product first messaging with branded messaging that really resonates with our audience was going to increase conversions. We took and built this GPT, and once it was completely built out, we gave it this prompt. Notice how I don't have to give it a ton of detail because it already has all the detailed saved. So like, I think a lot of people who use Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini and aren't using these models or like these like custom models are just writing the longest prompts you've ever seen because you feel like you have to keep telling it the same information over and over again. You don't have to do that with this. And we landed with what I think is much more resonant content. So we are mentioning the actual product, pretty important, and we are mentioning a really specific pain point to our users, right? We're not just saying like, oh, this is gonna like save you time, right? That's a really generic thing to say. This is really going into a specific pain point. And it worked very well. We saw a double-digit lift, which is already pretty rare, and it was a 12% conversion lift. That was on for this entire page, conversions of signups, so directly tied to revenue, and just by changing one sentence on the hero. And that's how important brand can be here, right? And there's another example where we did the same thing. We took this very boring, self-explanatory headline, and we came up with the exact same hypothesis. So same hypothesis, same prompt, and it came up with something that was more specific to the pain point, but also added some more confidence. So we added the word secure, and we added just works, and that's a really big pillar for Tailscale. We want to make sure that it's very clear to our users that like this is an easy tool to use. This is going to be quick to set up because most VPNs are a pain in the butt to set up. So this more emotive language, again, led to a double-digit lift, 17%. And that was the only thing we changed here. It was the only thing we changed here. And we take that and we apply it, we take it out of that A/B test, we apply it to the actual hero and publish it live. And now we can basically know for sure that this content is resonating and will continue to give us returns down the line. And then my friend Justin's going to say some stuff too.
I also want to talk about this related to content. Like Emily is talking about CRO and some other stuff, but there are things that we work on with clients that come out of a real knowledge of their pain points, context, structured context, that I'll show you how we set that up for clients, and you can use it too. Some of it's in an open source repo. And you can get pretty far by adding that stuff. And I don't want to spoil the one weird trick from later, but it is really about understanding what your differentiation is and understanding what your customers care about, and putting that in a place where AI can get to it. Where we see this not work is where clients that we work with don't have an understanding of those fundamentals. Where we use AI workflows to help produce content, we call it engineered content. Where we do that and there is a connection, we usually see much better performance. And in fact, sometimes AI written content for some of our clients, AI engineered content, is some of their best performing content. And it can actually be produced at scale. And the reason for that is you get the advantages of AI's ability to customize the post and customize the content for exactly the person who's searching, exactly what their concerns are, their role, how they want to think about it. And then you're connected to, okay, so how does that manifest our differentiators, the pain points that we solve, the things that are different about us? So I just want to extend sort of some of what Emily is saying to, and this applies to long form content and all kinds of other things as well.
Yeah, we use our bot for everything from like paid ads. Sometimes we'll use them for sales emails. We'll use them for regular marketing emails. So there's a lot of different ways that this can kind of come into play for sure. So we're going to show you 2 different ways that you can build this tool out. So I'm going to do the beginner's edition and let my very smart friend Justin do the more advanced edition. We're going to build out our beginner's edition in ChatGPT. We're going to set up a custom GPT. And the only real con that I would say, maybe it's not the only one, I don't know. You can, with this, the pro, I guess, is that you can do all this without a lot of like intense technical knowledge. You can do this with very little technical knowledge, just knowing how to use ChatGPT as basic as you, like the most basic way you can still build one of these out. The con is it's just a little bit less customizable, right? It's not going to allow you the opportunity to maybe even like build out an interface or any of those things. You could probably eventually connect it to Codex, but for right now, like that's probably the biggest con. And I don't think it can store as much as what Justin's example is going to show. However, I use this method a lot, and I've had a lot of success with it. So let's talk about it. First step is to go to ChatGPT, and you're going to click your dots and click on GPTs, and then you're going to create a GPT. And then we're going to follow 6 specific steps. The first is you need to collect all of your existing materials. So you probably have a persona doc somewhere out there. You probably have one-pagers or even landing pages on your products. Any internal documents that you use to train your sales team, train your marketing team. If you do have brand messaging pillars, awesome, let's add it to the list, right? And that goes into this too. If you don't, you can use AI to really build out those pillars, emotional posture, grammar and mechanics guides. You can do a lot of that stuff in AI and have it build out these documents that you then feed back to it to inform the model, right? Then you're going to want to define your voice. So, some people like to have very like punny content writing. Some people really like to have very cut and dry and serious content writing. Some people like to talk a lot with urgency. At Tailscale, we really try to focus on clarity because we want to make it clear that we're a highly technical product and we really understand what our users are going through. We also try to speak with a lot of calm, because we want to do the opposite of urgency. We want to kind of like soothe the user's nervous system when they think about their problems. So you need to define your voice. And again, that's something you can use AI for, to just try to figure out. One of the things I did when I first started doing this was I fed it a lot of landing pages and content, and basically asked ChatGPT how like they would define our voice. And I decided whether I liked that or didn't like that. So, okay, we've gathered all of our things. We build out our tool with the tabs that I just showed you. Then we're going to test and refine like crazy. And then we're going to start writing and continue to refine. So it's really, again, I cannot say this enough. It's really important to continue to refine. But even, let's say you gave this to like 5 or 6 team members. You've now enabled all of them to start writing off of the exact same source material for their own, let's say, surface, right? And if they're finding that, hey, the person who runs paid ads has found that this one specific thing that this bot keeps saying is performing very badly, then you can go back and you can tweak it. That's the best part of this, is you just continue to refine it until you can really get it to speak the way that you want it to speak. I have this PDF. It's a lot longer than this that we're going to send out via email. And it basically walks you through all 6 of these steps with a prompt that you can copy and paste into ChatGPT to build this out. So you can do almost no work. All you have to do is gather materials. And that's my spiel. Time to hand it to my smart friend, Justin. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. I don't know this. I hope we can find the smart Justin. I think we're all stuck with him now.
He's in the room. He's in the room.
He is. Okay, good. He's with me in spirit. The thing I was going to say too, just before I show some extensions of the things that Emily just talked about, is what I would love for people who are watching this to hear is like where the roles of humans are in this new way of working, which is freaking everywhere. So there is the gathering part, there's the reviewing part, there's the understanding part, there's the what, this experiment or that experiment? Do we talk about ourselves this way or that way? What does the performance look like and what should we do next? Like all of those things. And then of course, there's just sort of the general things we'd expect humans to do, like the strategy and other stuff like that. So, I think about these things that we see on LinkedIn. They're like, I replaced my ex with such and such number of agents. And it so deeply misses the point, because there is not less work for humans to do. There's just a different type of work for humans to do. And Emily, I don't know if you want to add anything before I start doing some demos of some other ways to extend the systems that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that really like the most interesting thing about this is you can actually ask these tools how you could extend them. And I think like once they have a good understanding of your business and your personas, they can really come up with a lot of different ideas for you. So I'll give you an example. I wanted to see if we could kind of like vibe code a cool tool or like a little video game that I want my users, I want a little pop-up to come up and I want them to click it, and then I want them to do like kind of a whack-a-mole of all the errors. And I asked this bot how I could possibly do that, and it helped me do it from like literally point A to point Z. And I'm hoping that we'll launch it. I think Joey's on this call. I'm hoping that we'll launch it sometime in the next couple of weeks and test and see if it helps, right? So you can really come up with a lot of interesting ideas and do a lot of interesting work just by using this bot and understanding, what it's suggesting and building off of those things.
Yes, exactly. Emily, this is not the purpose of this webinar, but we've got to get this into the marketing arcade. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen successfully here, but these are games that we've been building on our site too. Why, Justin? Why would you add games to your site? I don't know, because it's really cool that we can create like games about brand crisis. So that's like really fun. Okay,
I need to check that out.
Yeah. So let's switch over to some of the system stuff I wanted to talk about. So one of the things that AI really rewards is systems, thinking about systems and content systems, which is part of the reason we spend a lot of our time thinking about that. And there are a few ways to sort of take the ideas that Emily is talking about further in terms of the way you structure it. Our favorite way to do this, but by no means the only way to do this, is to build a repo. So in GitHub. So just for folks on this call who may or may not.
I'm going to pause. Oh yeah, okay. I just want to make sure we can see your screen. We can now. Go ahead.
here's the thing about GitHub is it doesn't have to be the place this all lives. It's just designed for a bunch of the system stuff. One way you can think about sort of living in this new world that Emily's been talking about, that I'm going to talk about, is that we're all building software together instead of necessarily building like individual pieces. We're building the software that builds some of the content, not all of it, but some of it. And so GitHub is a great place for that, but you can do this in all kinds of places. This is a public repo that we are working on. We're pushing stuff to it as we come up with new ideas, come up with new workflows. And so I'm going to use this as an example for how to organize this work. And this is also a kind of schema that we use with some of our clients as well. So it works pretty well. And the way to think about it is you have a GitHub repo. A GitHub repo is basically, it's a bunch of code, it's a bunch of text files. And there are really fundamentally two folders here that we care about. There's the marketing brain and the marketing hands. And you can decide however you would like to brand it, but that's how we try to think about it. The marketing brain is this context folder. And a very good mutual friend of ours, Emily, Janessa Lance, has been doing some cool stuff here, and we've really built on her work to kind of define what are the limited number of files that you want to have in that context folder, the context for agents. So, canonical themes, canonical, what do we do? A lot of folks we work with, and these are, companies that are 10 to 100 million of ARR or more, it's actually hard to figure out what they do. It's not defined anywhere on the site, but it turns out to be really important for agents, questions like this. So what do we do? What are our proof points from customers? All of these things. So that goes in this context folder, and you can decide what entities you want to use and how you want to think about this, but having some of those basics is really helpful. One other trick that we use that really helps us produce good content sometimes is we just tell the AI, restate other things that our client has already said. Reuse other, don't try to make your own stuff up. And sometimes, you don't need to do that. But it is pretty reliable in terms of producing that content that is entry points and remixes and elaborations on what people already have versus trying to produce stuff that's brand new that AI is not always that good at. So having that context in one place for AI to use, to restate, to reiterate in what it's producing is very helpful. And this is one way of organizing that using these basics. I will add a quick note here on context engineering, because it turns out that everybody's a context engineer now. AI models talk a lot about how you can put, 1,000 pages in and it'll use it all as context and it'll all be great. And I don't want to be too blunt, but I will just say that in my experience, that is bullshit. And you need to curate what the AI sees. So one of the things that we see happen a lot, especially where we're coming into client to work with clients where they've tried to do this and it hasn't really been working, is they're like, oh yeah, we just, gave it our entire website, or we gave it a 50-page document, or we are just giving it all of our customer calls. And AI is terrible at knowing what's important. So engineering the context that it has turns out to be important, and this helps to do that. That's one part of the repo. And then the other part of the repo is just the marketing hands, which is workflows. We typically organize workflows into edit, generate, ops, and research. Those are the four things that we want, how we want AI to think about, like building agents for those things. I won't go into each one in detail, but the way we organize them within the folders is we'll pick, generate articles. This one's generate FAQ responses. Everybody wants to have FAQs, so if he writes the responses, this does. And then we have a bunch of rules in this content systems repo and in the workflows folder for how we have seen the most success with the probably several hundred of these that we've built. So there are different rules in here that I won't get into, but the one rule is do a pre-flight and make sure that, hey, agent, make sure you can actually access all the things that I've asked you to look at before you start doing anything else. And tell me if you can't, because an AI will not tell you normally. And it'll say, okay, I didn't access that. All right, I'll make it up. It's fine. So like that's the thing we always have. Or we always have a separate draft and polish step. And then the polish step refers back to that context we built. But the draft step doesn't have those rules. It's just about getting some things down. So there's lots and lots of different ways that we approach this that we have in here. But having everything in a central repo that people on the team feel comfortable using and contributing to and sharing is important. And we think whether it happens in GitHub or not, it will be a pretty fundamental way of working together as marketers. I will also say that Aircule has a very strong stance that these tools should generally be open source. It should be the model plus text files. You don't need another SaaS to manage this for you. So that is important. And even when we work with clients, we build all of our stuff so that it can be handed off to them. We build it in their infrastructure. What marketers do not need is another layer of SaaS to deal with right now. Actually, what we need to do is get more connected to some of those fundamentals. So that is kind of the general like organization that we've used and we've seen work. And again, this is public and we're continuing to work on it and push stuff to it. So take a look, workflows and context. The other sort of fun thing I will show is a tool that we've built for internal use and for some of our clients that I call Monster Truck Rally or Monster Truck Jam. And what Monster Truck Jam does is you can go in here, pick a workflow from that repo, and let's do generate.
I don't think we see it.
Oh,
I don't think we're seeing Monster Truck Jam. Cool.
Can you see it now? Great.
Yeah.
So here it is. I am the worst at actually sharing tabs on these things. I once did a live.
Okay.
It was 10 minutes long, and I just talked about the tab the whole time, did not share it. So Emily,
awesome. You're so welcome.
So what this does is this goes on top of GitHub repos, and you can use it to test them out. So like I'm going to run this pipeline, and you're actually going to see Claude execute all the steps in the pipeline. And you'll see here it's doing the pre-flight and checking it off, and then it's going to do its research step. And this is useful for folks on your team who maybe aren't quite ready to use GitHub, maybe don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but this can actually give them some exposure to the workflows, how they work, and it generates a Google Doc at the end so people can copy paste out. So I'm going to stop talking in a second, but that was what I wanted to talk about is just, Emily, you have built this stuff that works incredibly well at Tailscale, and this is a way that folks can think about at their companies starting to instantiate this and turn it into systems, and it is ultimately something, some sort of organization like this is probably where we're all going as marketers. So
I agree. I also will just add that I really want to +1 the idea that feeding AI every single web page and every single PDF and every single piece of content is a terrible method. You are better off asking it what it needs and trying to synthesize that content down so you can maybe say like what web pages would be most important, right? Or what facts about the company would be most important versus just sending it so much stuff that it really starts to just give you the most, like the weirdest mishmash of stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
I think we got through everything.
We did it.
Nate, do you want to see some Q&As?
Yeah, we have a few minutes left to do some questions. So let me pop this up real quick. All right, so here is one question. Somebody asked, how do you prioritize requests from other teams when everything is a priority?
I think that this is why these kinds of cool tools are so cool, right? It really allows you. So, for example, I used to have to manage getting like a ton of web pages up at once and working with the content writers and putting it in the right place and making sure it's the right format, all that kind of stuff. You create this, you send it to your team. Now they can create a first draft and they can come to you and ask you for feedback. So it cuts down on a lot of the like admin work of spinning a lot of plates and does still allow you to have some like governance and like oversight on it. So that's usually the thing that I try to do is like, if I find that there's a lot of stuff going on and everything feels kind of crazy, I'll look for a pattern. If you see the pattern, it can usually be solved by some sort of tooling that you can build out now with AI.
One thing I'll say that's really nice about a GitHub or something like that, it is fundamentally very deeply thought out collaboration software. And one of the things it gives you is version control. It gives people access to make their own branches, push their own things, pull their own things, and do that in a way that's actually very well controlled, as crazy as that sounds. So yeah, it's not easy to figure out, but like as a human, think about the tooling, and if you can get the right tooling in place, like you said, Emily, that really helps.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Dale. Here's another question. Somebody asked, what does a content team need from go-to-market, including product, to be successful?
Yeah, I think that like a lot of information on personas and pain points, that to me has been like a game changer. I can add as many brand documents as I want, but if I don't have like really specific pain points for specific personas, it's still going to be really general. It's going to create a lot of really great general tail scale info that really makes people like feel something, but it is not going to double click into the pain point. You know, they might feel calm, but they don't really know what they feel calm about. And so we want to make sure that we're speaking to them in their language. And so that's what I find is like working really closely with PMM specifically and getting those details is pivotal. If you can put that in a document and send it to folks, or even again, that's another thing you could do. You could ask this bot. You can say, what do you need from the go-to-market PMM team in order to have the information that will make us successful?
Yep. And there was one other thing I wanted to say related to that. Yes. The weird trick I kept alluding to. I came up with that joke yesterday, and now I feel very committed to it. So, it's fundamentals. Like, it's just your marketing fundamentals. Yeah. A lot of teams have been able to outpace not knowing what their product is. And you won't be able to do that anymore because now that's actually a major source. You know, it always was, but now more so, it is the source of differentiation. Like, everybody can write 1,000 articles. Everybody can do that now. But not everybody has a product that's actually differentiated and understands what that differentiation is and can communicate it. And that is the weird trick that we actually have to get back to with all this stuff.
I agree. And I would just also add that like, there's a lot of value too in giving these agents context on your competitors, because what you don't want to do is fall into, they might be creating these exact same kinds of agents. They probably are, right? And so you want to make sure that you're making sure you're double checking that you're not kind of then having the same problem where you're creating generic content because it sounds just like your competitor. You need that like brand advantage for sure.
Yeah, and in understanding a lot about how your product actually solves the problem. Also, I'm noticing myself saying like actually a lot, which is disturbing. I'm also, yesterday I said, it's worth noting. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God. In today's ever-changing world, digital landscape, you know? Yeah,
More questions, Nate. More questions.
Yeah, so we have time for probably one more. And I saw this one just pop into the chat, and I think it's a really interesting question. So Chris asked, we have an international group of blog authors. I understand that marketing speak in blog language is a negative, but what is the value of the author's voice? Is there any way of preserving the author's writing style while achieving highly effective readable content? And should that even be an objective?
I do want to get to Sam's question too, by the way, before we.
Okay, perfect.
A few more questions.
I'll take this question. So this is a really, really good question because especially when you have, again, I'll go back to Tailscale. Tailscale has a very, very smart audience, very smart developers. We need to make sure that the people who are writing the content for our audience are smart, know what they're doing, and really have their finger on the pulse. Anyone we hire to do content knows how to use our product like a pro. They're out there, they're on Reddit, they're on hackernews.com, really just trying to figure out like what's trending. And they use AI in a very different way. They'll use AI as an editor. They will not use AI as a first stab because their voice and their personal brand is incredibly important. Same as our CEO. Like our CEO's not going to put something on there that was completely created by AI. It needs to have his voice. We can get feedback from it, but we really don't do like a V1. The only thing I would say, if you did want to do like a V1 and then have AI write the rest with a specific voice, you can, number one, build out an agent that sounds like their voice, which is creepy, but doable. And number two, you can have them write the first draft and send it to this agent and ask it to like up level it and see what it comes back with. But I really believe in like, if you have specific intentional blog authors, you should let their voice really shine through. I wouldn't replace it too much with AI.
And I think this is a really deep and interesting question that we could do a whole webinar on. And as a literature nerd, I also care about this question. But yes, everything that Emily said, like, yes, it won't always be an objective. Like sometimes the goal is to get stuff. We need to get stuff out there. It doesn't matter exactly how it sounds, and we just need to be present on the market on this. And there are types of content where we don't care as much about that, but for the really good stuff and the brand stuff and the stuff that's going to make people care, I mean, the author has to care, and if they care, it's going to show through.
Yeah, that's great. All right, cool. Thanks, y'all. And then last, Samantha, this is a great question. So our company blocks Claude and ChatGPT and only allows us to use Copilot. What's nice is that it has access to all our docs and frequently cites those docs. Copilot's version of new GPT is new agent. Any thoughts or opinions on Copilot's agents?
Yeah, I mean, as you called out, Sam, like the main advantage is that it sits on your entire corpus, right? It's integrated with Office. As we mentioned earlier, that can also be a real problem. Like you are relying on, I'm not saying it has to be, but it could be. You're relying on the agent to do its own context engineering. And that can be dangerous. Agents are not typically good at context engineering. I would also say that one of the other points that we tried to make here is that the models are they're all catching up. And you know what? A year from now, who knows if we're even going to be using Claude? We may all be just running local inference, right? Like it's all going to catch up. And I'm excited to announce the Ércule data center coming 2027. But it's going to be so great. And a lot of parties. Anyway, the point I wanted to make is that it can be dangerous. I wouldn't worry too much the context engineering part. I wouldn't worry too much about its capabilities. I've seen Copilot do totally fine with what it creates, how it creates it, all that stuff. I don't know the internals of creating agent workflows with Copilot as well as I do for some of the other tools, but I think many of the practices we're talking about here are applicable. I don't think it's necessarily a problem. Either way, I think it's not going to matter that much in the next year, like which exact model you're using. And the only plus and possible minus I see is it does sit on the corpus of everything, but how do you make sure it's doing decent context engineering?
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we are a little bit over time, so we can go ahead and close out there. But a big thank you to Justin and Emily for sharing your knowledge on this. It was super helpful. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Again, a reminder, we did record this, so we'll be sending an email with the link to the recording after this. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. See you. Bye.